Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into tips to maximize your retail trade show investment. My name is April Waits, Director of Custom Media at Rethink Retail, and today I have two industry experts who are vastly familiar with what it takes to build success at events. Before we get started, Dave, Catherine, could you share a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. Hello, I'm Catherine Seeds. I'm President and CEO at Kettner Group Communications. We are a PR agency focused entirely in the retail tech ecosystem. We work with our clients on PR strategy, media relations, content, social media, et cetera. I'm glad to be here to share our experience in trade show support.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Wynand. I'm one of the co-founders and the Chief Customer Officer at Incisive. We are a research, insights, and strategy firm, work with firms to help them deliver a more effective go-to-market through content, research, events, et cetera. So good to be here.
All right. Well, thank you both for joining. Let's dive in. So first things first, it would be great to have an endless budget and manpower to attend every trade show that might be relevant, but that's not exactly reality. Vendors must first start by carefully deciding what events to attend. And with more and more trade shows popping up, like Shop Talk Fall, NRF Singapore, and many smaller events, it's more important than ever to take time to research events and audience. And personally, I always like to look at past audience demographics and talk to the organizers of the event. And then I also tap into my network, both from the retailer perspective and vendor side. Dave, what are some of the methods or advice that you would give to vendors when they're selecting which events to attend?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as you pointed out, we're currently in kind of a saturated event market. I think all of the event producers out there that kind of had a rough 2020 to 2022 are out there trying to make up revenue that was lost. And you know, it's our opinion at Incisive that there will definitely be a rationalization of events for sure at some point in the near future. But you know, until that point, obviously it's a crowded market out there, and you know, in terms of some things to think about, as you pointed out, April, you know, really understand the strengths and weaknesses of the event that you're looking at, because not every event's the same, as you know. You know, some events are, you know, really strong and have good reputations around their meeting program. Others could be, you know, their expo. Others could be networking and or even, you know, opportunities to speak and tell your story and your value proposition. So some have a combination of all those, but certainly not every event is strong in everything. So really, as you pointed out, April, it's really important to kind of get an understanding from other industry experts or from partners, those types of things that go to the event. And then the other piece to point out as it relates to, you know, this event marketplace that now is really what is the audience makeup, and that's not just like companies. It's what are the titles, what are the company types, what are the company sizes, and most importantly, you have to map that to your ICP or your ideal customer profile. So because that's going to really, you know, make your executives happier, make your sales teams happier, those types of things. That's really important to kind of map your ICP with what the audience makeup is. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I would even add to that another important aspect of selecting events is, you know, what level of participation are you willing to put in, or what level of participation, what opportunities do these event organizers offer? Catherine, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so certainly from our perspective, as a PR agency, we want to make sure that we're considering the media and analysts that are attending these shows. So as a PR agency, we work closely with editors and reporters to, cover our clients' news and industry perspectives. And what they write really helps influence our clients' opportunities and making sure that they're making time to meet with the media and analysts at those shows. So this is actually a nice segue to our next section in terms of setting up for success and the things that you need to keep in mind for pre-event planning. So as we've discussed already, the checklist for industry trade shows is quite long. And, from booth marketing to event logistics, sales meetings, marketing support, customer dinners, after hour events, and, much more. So, but it's really important to, not treat PR as an afterthought. It needs to be part of that long list of items. And you really want to start planning your PR messaging and strategy several months in advance, especially for big trade shows like NRF or Shop Talk. And this includes overarching themes, potential announcements, your announcement schedule, which is really important, spokesperson training, goals for your media and analyst meetings, on-site PR, and more. And what we found, the most PR savvy companies that we work with really do recognize that these industry events are prime opportunities to meet with the media, and again, to make those announcements, meet face to face with key media, press releases announcing customer wins, new products, or original research can really help create buzz before and going into the show. You help drive the booth traffic, and really lead to media coverage during and after the show. A couple of things that we recommend in terms of PR is to make sure that you're not packing all your news into a small period. So think about that schedule, that before, during, and after, and making sure that you're giving yourself some announcements to get out after the show to kind of continue that momentum buzz. So Dave, I know you have experience on that side of things as a former journalist, and kind of making sure that there's no drought after a trade show is really important.
No, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, especially the big trade shows, right? There's a lot of noise. So there should be some cadence of before, during, and after, just because invariably, if you try to do it all at the same time, something is going to get missed or not covered properly because there's just a lot of noise. So yeah, those are really good points.
Yeah, and that's also where I totally agree with you, Catherine. It's super important to develop that message beforehand and then make sure everyone on the team is aligned on the message. So even beyond your PR strategy, what do you want people to learn about your company, and what do you want them to take away from the show? We also focus a lot on generating buzz before an event, and specifically targeting event attendees or your target audience who may be attending as well, and keeping that message going through multi-channel or multimedia campaigns, oftentimes piggybacking off of the PR strategy or established messaging. Lead generation activities are also something that I think work pretty well for the companies that we work with. It's a good kind of conversation starter or introduction that can help you reach out to the right folks and schedule meetings with people who are familiar with and interested in your solution. Dave, I've seen you at many events, and I know you're really good about scheduling meetings in advance. Can you give us a little bit of information or tips about how vendors can go about that and why it's important?
Sure. So, I mean, look, I think ultimately, retailers and brands on the expo floor, I mean, they generally come with, 1, 2, maybe 3 projects on their roadmap, and they're coming to talk about what are their options, learn what their options are, understand what the market is offering, what are some of the key vendors that are offering solutions in that area, et cetera, et cetera. So by being proactive in reaching out pre-event, obviously you can pre-qualify, and it enables you to maximize the time that your salespeople are spending. In addition to obviously you're not wasting the retailer's time either, and that ultimately down the line they could appreciate that as well. So and then secondly, I would say just from a ROI perspective, I mean, meetings are inherently more valuable than the booth stop by, right? I mean, I think ultimately, a bad scan is nowhere near as valuable as spending 15, 20 minutes with a retailer. So, in doing so and in planning these meetings, obviously ROI will ultimately be stronger, and it has the potential to accelerate the sales cycle, which at the end of the day, that's the critical thing. So, I think from a meeting perspective or a pre-event perspective, and meetings, those are important. And just kind of to circle back to kind of some of the other pre-event strategies that we were discussing here. I mean, when it comes to like booths specifically, and at these big events, I think most of the vendors are doing booths. It's critical to really to collaborate with the entire team in terms of building out that plan, because you got product marketing and sales, that you're developing demos for. Obviously, that's going back to the fit piece that we talked about earlier. If you're developing a demo, understand who the audience is going to be there, so you can develop a demo that's more relevant to them. And then that would also mean like talk tracks and discovery questions, and that may fall more on kind of sales than it is marketing, but it's critical to uncover pain points and build that relationship with the folks you're meeting with. So to have those items prepared for ahead of time ultimately will provide more value to them. So those are just my thoughts as it relates to kind of that pre-event piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did reach out to some retailers before we did the webinar, and across the board, it's pretty much, they stop by booths of vendors that they maybe already work with, that they have heard about. They're looking on LinkedIn and other sources, newsletters, to learn about new technologies. So it really is important to have that kind of set up before you actually are at the event. But I think that's a good transition into, how can vendors make the most of their time at the show? Dave and Catherine, we've already mentioned this, events can be very saturated and it can be hard to stand out. What are some ways that you've seen vendors stand out recently?
Oh, well, Catherine, why don't you go first, since I just spoke nonstop for the last 5 minutes?
Sure. Really, I mean, as editors really get to know technology vendors, we see that good things start to happen. So they can really begin to understand your company and your area of expertise, and really recognize you as a go-to valuable resource. So that's why we love these kinds of trade shows, because it really allows us to take advantage of the relationship part of PR. And, really, again, allowing those vendors and media to get to know each other as individuals, which really can lead to long-term relationships from that standpoint. And in terms of, the things at the show, media analysts, kind of outreach can vary depending on the timing of the show. But in general, you want to start analyst outreach early, and maybe even do some of those analyst briefings ahead of time, simply because there's only so much time of the day for those analysts to get to booth to meet with folks. So we do encourage those more in-depth briefings with analysts prior to a show, and then maybe, schedule a 20-minute touch base at the booth. And in terms of the media, we typically like reaching out to the media as soon as the media list is available, or if we've been to that show before, we're going to start reaching out to the folks, our kind of usual gang of suspects that we know are going to be there and interested in meeting with our clients. Which is another important, and I keep going back to this, is to make sure that you have some exciting news to share at these events. That is going to get the attention of the media. Customer announcements are great. Product announcements are great. Things like that. Little things like, having hard copies available at your booth is good, because these media and analysts are getting tons and tons. And to your point, Dave, there's so much noise around these shows. If you have a hard copy of press releases or announcements for them to take away, that might be helpful as they're working on their post and off stories. If you don't have news to share, that's okay. These meetings at trade shows are a great opportunity for, sharing insights, hearing what they're seeing at the show, the technologies that are, really interesting to them. And I always tell our clients to kind of have some golden nuggets available as kind of, or sound bites, and that will help you stand out and help you get included on those roundup articles and must-see lists of a trade show.
Yeah, interesting. So what do you guys think in terms of vendors or solution providers in speaking sessions. I know there's varying degrees of value put against that. We know obviously things like big idea sessions at NRF seem to be coveted because they charge a ton of money and they have no problem selling them. But I just would it'd be interesting to kind of get your perspective, either from a PR perspective or from a content perspective. How do you advise your clients just from a speaking opportunity? Because it's like I said, some of our clients really value it, and we do a lot of research, and we use that research as a vehicle for those types of sessions. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think going back to the beginning and doing some research on, big idea session, that's NRF, obviously. Different events will have different kind of formats and, provide different value. So
Right.
I think overall, it's usually a good idea, especially if you're trying to generate awareness. Second thing I would say is if you have a client who's willing to be on stage with you, it's a fantastic opportunity to tell your success story. And then we also repurpose that content following the event. So most of the time you can get the recording, or these sessions are recorded. So you can repurpose it into different formats, publish it afterwards, or even create like articles or paper case studies that's based off of the presentation. A lot of these are also lead generation opportunities. So you'll get a list of attendees who are obviously interested in hearing what you have to say. This is a great opportunity to have, give a follow-up with those people after the show. So yeah, I think it depends on.
I actually think you hit on something that I think very few people take advantage of, which is, and we preach this all the time, but being able to repurpose that content.
Yeah.
And I think it's something, if you're going to spend 35 grand for a big idea session, and that 35 grand is gone in 40 minutes or whatever those sessions are, then, yeah, it's valuable. But if you can use it, 3, 4, 5 more times elsewhere, then ultimately that can be, that amplifies that value. So I think it's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that even goes for the whole show. It's not every day where your big executives or your subject matter experts are in the same area as your clients or your prospects. So we actually do a lot of kind of like evergreen content at events just for that reason alone.
Well, you and your video crews are everywhere, or I can tell.
We try to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it might be interesting maybe just to have a quick discussion. I certainly know that we do it, and I know you do it, April. So just kind of like this idea of kind of surround events, kind of the value of what the potential value that those can bring. I might have some thoughts about it, but certainly maybe April, you start and kind of maybe give us kind of your opinion on how to maximize surround events.
Yeah, absolutely. So surround events, whether it be, from the organizer, a lot of these industry events will have like dinners that you can sponsor and things like that. Or maybe you're doing it by yourself or having a partner. Dave, Incisive and Rethink Retail both do surrounding events. I think they're a great idea, but you really have to think them through, right? So you have to consider what's going on with the event organizers. Is it conflicting with any major industry or event of theirs? So like a hosted program or something like that. You also have to consider, what is your budget for these events? If you're planning on hosting a party in Las Vegas or during NRF or something like that, you need to make sure you have a pretty healthy budget set aside. And this is where, partnering, maybe it's not with us, maybe it's with, your solution providers, your ISVs or something like that. And pooling together resources can be tremendously helpful. This can also be helpful as you're trying to draw a crowd, because if you're going to spend the money on an event like a dinner or something like that, you want to make sure you can get people in the seats or people to the venue, right? So there's just a lot of planning and logistics that go with it, and you want to make sure you have some existing relationships and are able to have a really impactful method of getting people, drawing attention to your event.
Yeah, I think,
So
that's a good point.
yeah.
I mean, what we always ask is kind of what is the objective of the event itself? Because I mean, certainly, there are events to kind of strengthen relationships with current clients, or is it really to more accelerate deal cycles with prospects, those types of things. It also could just be, flat out new prospect, just, new prospect type of objective. Doesn't mean, they can't all coexist in one, but it's really important to know kind of what you want from an event, from an objective perspective, because that will shape, the type of event you do, and, to your point, maybe the budget you'll spend, and, all those kinds of things. It'll shape the strategy for that. And so I think those are really good points. And to what you were just getting to, April, which is like, really look internally. Do you have the resources, internally to execute on this event? That resource could be, from just marketing, or it could be the operational aspects of it. And then most importantly, the recruitment, as you said, April, because, that's that's where the rubber hits the road, right? Getting the people on, in the room or on the seat. And you brought up good ideas, right? If you determine you don't have the resources to do it yourself, I mean, is your partner ecosystem someone you can go with, or are there third party events? And, obviously we know what we do and what you guys do. So, those opportunities, there's no shortage of stuff you can do at events. So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it was a good point that you brought up, is what is your goal with the event? Because certainly it is valuable to have a customer dinner where you're just, building that relationship with your
right.
existing customers. But there might be, maybe you're looking to generate more awareness and still get, registrant information. But you're not super concerned with building the relationship right then and there. You might want to do like a less intimate event, like more of a big party or something. And then there are opportunities also to have like a mixed event. So it's a blend of customers and prospects, which is always really great to have. You have these natural conversations around your
Sure.
solution oftentimes, and people can vouch for it, and they're actually successfully using your solution. So I'm a big fan of that whenever you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was at a couple of user group meetings earlier this year, and I was at a lunch table, and I saw the provider who, purposely set up, one retailer with one of the clients, and I didn't even know it was happening until I knew it was happening. I mean, I was like, oh, now I understand what's going on here. So, and then I was this kind of lone analyst amongst this big, deep conversation. I was a little uncomfortable, but I got through it. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's also super helpful for those retailers too.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, it really is.
They want the insights, right? They want to know, should I invest in this solution? It's a huge decision. And when you can get that firsthand conversation,
it's tremendously valuable for sure.
Yeah. So it's like a win-win for them.
Anything else, Catherine? Anything you want to add from an on-site perspective?
I do have one bit of advice in terms of, from the media and analyst standpoint, really make sure that you're showing the media and analyst you're meeting with kindness and respect. We always say treat the media as as one of your best customers. So really think about offering them a place to sit. I've had clients over the years that don't have enough chairs and things like that. So you want to think about that. Offer them some water or beer, perhaps. We have a previous retail tech editor on our staff, and we asked his advice on this, and he said, yes, beer. Beer is always a good thing.
Yeah, and in Vegas, that beer means like 10 a.m.
Exactly. Because they're going to be exhausted from their packed schedules. They're going from booth to booth. So really kind of think about it from a human perspective,
Good advice.
what you would like. And, again, like finding out in advance, what they would like to focus on when they're coming to meet with you, and really address those expectations. So you're going to have 20, 30 minutes. It's a lot of information to cram into a short amount of time. So try to be concise and, again, make sure you give them what they need so they can get off to their next meeting in time.
I love that. I think that's such great advice. It seems so simple to just show kindness and respect, but everyone's crazy busy at events, and so it's a really nice reminder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, now that you've had a successful event and made great connections, what's next? So, Catherine, what is some post-event advice that you would give to vendors?
Yeah, so it's definitely important to, really keep the conversations going after the event, especially with the media and analysts that you've talked to, or maybe you didn't get a chance to talk to. So, follow up with everyone you met at the show. Send them any follow-ups that you said that you would follow up on. These kinds of follow-ups and the conversations are going to inevitably lead to post-show follow-up articles. So send them everything that you said that you would send to them and more. And, really, whether it's a specific deliverable or a demo or maybe a long form piece of content as a follow-up. And again, don't forget to follow up with the media that you maybe didn't have a chance to meet with, or they couldn't attend the show. Again, these kind of conversations are critical. And, really, if you do it right, post-event content, I mentioned ebooks. If you kind of include this in your overall marketing planning, you might, put together an ebook, or you could do a post-event blog where you're sharing, kind of key themes from the event, or things that, topics that came up in every conversation that you had, and, really make them unique as possible. So include images, videos, podcasts, things like that you might have, done at the show to really make your content stand out. And, again, the most important thing is to follow up. And, a lot of, as retail tech vendors, they spend a lot of time preparing for these trade shows, and, they work overtime to execute on the things to make sure that they get the leads that they want, the right conversations, et cetera. So just remember that the show doesn't end when the booths break down, and just to continue those conversations.
I think, I've definitely seen the level of maturity and sophistication, over the years is significantly improve. Most vendors or tech companies, have a process in place where, the leads from the shows, they go somewhere, right? It either goes into a BD, a business development, or a sales cadence, something in terms of a follow-up. We've also worked with some of our clients where there's a process in between where they have a step, where they're doing some nurturing. Marketing steps in and does some nurturing, that with content that's consistent or relevant to the conversations that were had. I've also seen the opposite, which is a complete random blanket email about, hey, let's talk, and it's like, they're not even. They just took the leads and they dumped them into a database, and they're like, boom, and doesn't work with anybody. I guarantee it doesn't work with anybody. But I would say that, coordination between marketing, BD, sales, that's what's critical here. This is where stuff breaks down. This is where the, opportunities dissipate because there's no coordination. You might have an aggressive salesperson that jumps on something before there's really a plan in place in terms of how do you properly follow up with that person, and how do you contextualize that follow up to the discussion that was had, or the demo that was given, or those types of things. So, I know we haven't touched on this idea of ABM. It's pretty popular in the industry. You don't have to go that dramatic, but certainly understand the people that you were talking to and contextualize the follow up to that at minimum. And then, and then you take it from there.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to the pre-planning too, meeting with BDR and sales, and kind of giving an outline of how you're classifying leads at the event, making sure your team is recording pieces of information that will be helpful afterwards. And then, also incorporating like appropriate messaging into your content plan. Obviously, you're not going to create a piece of content or an ebook after the event and then send it out. You have to work in advance and plan that out and have it ready to go once the event has finished. Because it's super important, that for you to be prompt with your follow-ups, but also personalized. Like you said, Dave, people don't want to meet you and have like a 30-minute conversation and then get a generic email. They want a piece of information that is valuable to them based on the conversation that you had. So recording that information and prepping as much as you can up front will help you provide a follow-up that is quick and also, really personable based on the conversations that you're having.
Yeah. And just to circle back on, having a solid press release strategy and schedule. If you're having conversations with the media at the show and let them know like, hey, we have another pretty big announcement coming up in the next month. We would like to send that information to you. It really gives the media that you're meeting with something to look forward to beyond what you announced at the show. Again, kind of continuing that post trade show momentum. So again, making sure that PR is a part of that overall marketing and sales planning.
Great point.
Yeah. Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about, like having a debrief, the importance of that and how companies can conduct those with their marketing and BDR teams?
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on it. I mean, I think from a debrief perspective, just be like I've said all along, just collaborate with the team that had their hands in that trade show, and sit down with them and I think you guys both touched on it. Is okay, these are the leads that are hot, warm, cold. This is the conversations that we had. How do we build up a follow up plan? Every solution provider is different in terms of their process, but ultimately, I think. It's just critical to collaborate with the teams that are responsible for converting those, if they're on an MQL schedule, to converting those to SQLs and those types of things. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah. Great. And the last thing that I would add to that is history sometimes repeats itself, right? So make sure you're reflecting back on last year's debrief notes as you prepare for the next event, right? Awesome. Catherine, you want to sum it up?
Yeah, I would say that, just in terms of just speaking from our perspective, we know that, getting leads and coming away with, good qualified prospects at a show is critical. That's why our clients and technology vendors spend so much money and so much time investing in these trade shows. But really making sure that you're making time and freeing up schedule and your executive schedules at the show to meet with the media analysts, because they're going to be just as important. Technology vendors are a really important source of information about the direction of our industry. And, trade show meetings provide a really unique opportunity to provide those perspectives. So that would be my big takeaway from this.
Awesome.
All right. So in short, pre-planning and analysis are critical, and make sure you're spending time creating a compelling message that's not just about how cool your product is, but how it can provide value and what differentiates it. Consider ways to generate pre-show buzz and how to stand out and build relationships at the event. And lastly, always follow up with a personalized approach. So thank you for joining, Dave and Catherine. It was a pleasure to have you. And as always, I appreciate the insights. We also like to invite everyone, if you're interested in diving deeper into these strategies, to reach out to us by scanning the QR code or emailing me at april.waits@rethink.industries for an interactive and intimate Mastering Trade Shows workshop, where you'll learn in-depth strategies, receive hands-on guidance, and participate in interactive sessions. All right.
Thanks for having me. This was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes, a lot of the solutions in my current stack all started from relationships I built at trade shows. It's a great opportunity to get face time with the vendors you already use, and you can discover new ones that you can use in the future.
Trade shows today are dominated by a plethora of technology providers, offering to solve all kinds of problems. It can be overwhelming if you don't have a specific need or goal in mind. I typically have a few business cases in mind, and look to connect with or visit booths related to that. Of course, you will invariably run into something exciting while walking the floors. I particularly enjoy random connections at the breakfast or lunch sessions. I'm not so much a party kind of guy.
I love to talk to people, so I love to go to the round tables, dinners at events, the parties, anywhere where I have a chance to talk to people and meet new people.
At events, I engage in keynote sessions, workshops, and panel discussions to learn about the most recent trends. I explore exhibit halls for product demonstrations and converse with vendors directly. Networking is essential. Therefore, I join social gatherings and roundtables to meet peers and industry leaders.